morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Tuesday, June 26, 2012. News from Bermuda showing that John Charman has been ousted as chairman of Axis Capital. Mr. Charman founded Axis in the weeks after the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001 after raising about $1.7 billion from investors. He'd been the CEO for 11 years until he resigned last month to become the chairman. He's now been replaced by Michael Butt, who was the former chairman. There's been a filing that's been put forward by Axis indicating some information about it. The main information is that Mr. Charman's holdings in the company remain still at around 2.92 million shares, worth about $92 million at yesterday's closing price. In Syria, heavy fighting is reported today in Damascus and its suburbs. Meanwhile, Turkey has warned Syria that it will respond with military force if Turkish troops feel threatened or if Syrian troops move any closer to the Turkish border. Turkey has brought the issue of the downing of the Turkish military plane by Syria to NATO. Turkey is a member of NATO. NATO is outraged and is meeting about it right now. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Debbie is inundating Florida. It's stalled over the state, dumping more than 2 feet of rain in some places. It's even cut off Interstate 10 in sporadic areas for about 50 miles, especially around where it intersects with Interstate 75. The storm is moving eastward at 3 miles per hour. Talk about a drenching. Florida's getting it. It has maximum sustained winds of about 45 miles per hour. It's barely a tropical storm status, but it is a gigantic rainmaker. Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, is set to write an $800 million chunk of Suncor Australia's July 1 renewal open market cat treaty. That's going to be business mainly in Australia and in New Zealand, combined with about $200 million that Berkshire had already agreed to write on the New Zealand area. This takes the group's single event excess of loss exposure to as high as $1 billion. Last year there was one reinstatement allowed, so it's implying now a total of exposure of about $2 billion for Berkshire Hathaway in Australia and in New Zealand. Maybe Mr. Buffett knows something that we don't know about any prospective earthquakes. The price of Samsung's electronics umbrella liability insurance, providing cover for consumer compensation claims on its products bought in North America, doubled this year. In a stock market filing this morning, Samsung revealed that it had paid $8.3 million to its Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance affiliate for the cover. No comparable figure was given last year, but under filing disclosures, it suggests now that the renewal price is at least double that of last year. Back in April, Samsung indicated that it had paid premiums to its subsidiary insurance company for director and officers insurance, representing an increase of 40% year on year. Some movement in the executive suite of Bermuda's Aspen Insurance. It seems that CEO Rupert Villers is going to step aside, and he's going to be replaced by the current CEO, Mario Vitale. He's taking over Aspen Insurance chief executive role exclusively. He's going to remain the president of Aspen Insurance US. Mr. Villers is going to take on a new role within the company. An interesting scene yesterday at Mexico City's International Airport. A gun battle broke out between police. 3 policemen were killed in a shootout with other officers suspected of drug trafficking at the airport. Panicked travelers scrambled for safety at the very busy facility. 2 agents were killed at the terminal. Another died of his injuries in the hospital. More than a dozen shots were fired. Airport spokespeople said that aircraft departures and arrivals continued normally despite the incident. Here's an interesting story. The Federal Aviation Administration in the United States is faced with a bit of a dilemma. There hasn't been a big jet crash since the American Airlines Airbus went down in Queens back in November of 2001, so it's been a relatively safe period. However, with the crash of the commuter jet in Buffalo 2 years ago, rules began to be circulated regarding pilot fatigue. The problem is the FAA can't get that through because the airlines and others are saying that it's going to be too costly. And they point to the fact that now it seems that the risk of fatality in crashes in the United States is 1 out of 47 million in a commercial jet incident. And they're saying that if you take the cost of life, which has been computed by the FAA to be $6.2 million, imposing the regulations which would require more crew rest and intervals between pilot flight times, it doesn't seem to pay. The amount of money that would be required to implement those rules would quickly gobble up the 6.2 million a life rule. So as a result, the whole thing is stalled. The Obama administration is attempting to press ahead despite the economics of the situation. Meanwhile, the industry is balking. And just as we finish this story, federal aviation officials are going to order airlines to put oxygen systems back in commercial jet restrooms. They had banned them after 2001 for fear that terrorists would use them to start a fire on board. The cost of implementing the return of oxygen systems to bathrooms on planes will be about $44 million for 5,500 planes. By my math, that works out to about 7.5 lives that are going to be saved if you use the 6.2 million per life rule. I don't know about that. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.